What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake Game by Game Breakdown. Welcome. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we do go live. My name is CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on Twitter at Wise_Take, on Instagram and Facebook at WiseTake with no underscore. And you can visit directly at WiseTake.com if you're ready to get down and learn the game of NBA DFS. We are premium DFS content provider as well as DFS community. With that said, again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell. We go live Monday through Friday for NBA. A couple times a day, really. We do the Core 4 video. That's a first look video. We do the game by game breakdown, which is this show here. We go over our projections. It's midday. It's 12 p.m. Eastern. So these projections will update throughout the day. If you want access to these projections, you can get them from WiseTake.com. With the day pass, monthly pass, whatever the case may be, comes with the NBA DFS content side. So yeah, make sure you don't miss out. And please, guys, like the video. If you're new and you haven't seen this before and you want to wait till after you watch it to like it, it's fine. But if you do like the video, if you do want to see more of this, if you appreciate the content we put out for free and want to see more free content, the likes really help us out, go a long way. So if you could do that, that'd be great. All right. So we got a bigger slate today. It's not like that massive. I think it's like 9 games, but it's bigger than what we've had since we've been doing these game by game breakdowns. So I'm going to try to go a little quicker so I don't keep everybody here. Don't forget to check out our flagship show. It'll be at 5:45 p.m. Eastern later today, right here on the YouTube channel. We will start hour 15 minutes or so before lock. We start. We go position by position, and we take you into lock. So this way you have the latest information up until lock at least. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. First up, we've got Charlotte Hornets visiting the Cleveland Cavaliers. We've got a 213 total. It's up from 210. Charlotte opened up as 2.5-point road dogs. They're now 1.5-point road dogs. Hard to imagine Cleveland favored over anybody, but it's Charlotte, so there you go. With that said, we got the Charlotte side pulled up here. So just from a raw minute standpoint, the Zeller-Biyombo situation is debatable, but with PJ Washington back, you know that they're going back to splitting. When he was out, we saw them play together at times, which was cool, but that seems to be no more. They are both cheap. Terry Rozier, a really good matchup for point guards against Cleveland. Good matchups for centers, so that's the reason I addressed the Biyombo-Zeller situation. They're both really cheap. Thompson has not been good defensively. Centers have destroyed Cleveland, so really all positions have. Let's be honest. Cleveland's a terrible defensive team. That's why they are who they are. But point guard centers obviously are in the best position normally to accrue fantasy points because of rebounds and point guards having the ball in their hand. But Terry Rozier, not bad. I don't think there's anything that's standing out too much now on this side, right? Like Devontae Graham is certainly someone you're going to want to be mindful of. His price on FanDuel at 7.7 is pretty attractive. So is Rozier's, now that I mentioned it, at 6.2. But we have Graham at 37 minutes, which I think, it's pretty accurate of what he's playing. There's a ton of room to move. So he's not going to end up being, we'll look at the other teams. I don't think he's going to end up being, a point guard that you're naturally going to have a ton of. But I think he's someone you're going to want to make sure you have some of. You know what I mean? Other than that, you can take shots on guys like Malik Monk. If they get hot, they can always do it. But it's a 9-game slate, so you'd hope you don't have to go that far. We should have other value that opens up. But the centers and point guards, as you can see, they're the ones who are projecting well naturally. And it just so happens that they're the ones who have the softest matchup. PJ Washington is popping a little bit more over on FanDuel at 5.3, which I think makes more sense. 33.5 minute project. He's projecting for around 30 or so based off those. And the 5.8 price tag on DraftKings isn't so friendly. Like, if you're going to pick a 5.17x projection, you'd rather take Graham because he's got the ceiling. But, on FanDuel, Rozier and PJ Washington standing out a little more over there. Of course, you always have to consider position scarcity and range of outcomes, right? Like Devontae Graham, 37 minutes. We've seen this go for 60. Why is his projection only 42? Because a lot of times he goes for in the 30s when he's not playing well. So, range of outcomes, very important. We'll update these throughout the day. Of course, let's go to the Cleveland side. Clevelandia. Wow. Nobody really projecting well here. You could argue that the minutes are somewhat conservative, but especially with Clarkson out of the mix, but it does look like they're just being distributed mildly, right? Like there's nobody, the highest we see here is Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson, who are 32 plus. After that, Kevin Porter Jr. only 25.5. He is cheap. We'll have to keep an eye on what we do with his minutes there. Colin Sexton, we could probably raise. I just don't know how much it's going to impact. He's not that high of a point per minute player, but on FanDuel, he's already looking good. So if we were to raise that at all for FanDuel, he would certainly, I think, stand out. Thompson's price looking more attractive on FanDuel as well. You only get one center there, so it's a harder decision to make, but I'm not loving what I'm seeing from this side. I think that, Porter for value potentially, but Kevin Love, Sexton, Thompson, from a matchup standpoint, Charlotte, very bad against bigs. So Love and Thompson are certainly interesting. Colin Sexton, because we assume the minutes are going to kind of get back to where they were. If remember, not necessarily the same as last year, because they have guys like Darius Garland who they're trying to find time for, and they traded for Dante Exum, which is really just probably to get rid of Clarkson more than anything else. But either way, I think that it is Charlotte. We like to attack Charlotte with bigs. Kevin Love, Tristan Thompson are certainly interesting when looking at these guys. Larry Nance is very cheap if you want to take that shot. It's he should get some time at the 4 and 5 as well potentially, but it's just a minutes thing. You got him projected for 19 because that's what he's been doing in the situation, but not a ton of appeal on the Cleveland side outside of the centers. And again, the matchup is great. It's just their prices are up, so making them nothing but tournament plays, in my opinion. Next up, we got the Denver Nuggets visiting the Indiana Pacers. We have a 209 total that's come down from 210. Denver opened up plus 1.5, and it's still plus 1.5. Pacers are favorites at home. We'll start off with the Denver side. Jamal Murray standing out pretty hard. I think we know that Brogdon has been ruled out on the other side, so that's a good defender that's been out. Although I don't know if it's because he's hurt or whatever, but Brogdon's been getting cooked. I've been seeing it. Either way, Jamal Murray is certainly a candidate. We'll want to see if there's any potential injuries here. This is Denver. Gary Harris, obviously, he's missed the last couple games. We'll want to check on the status of him. Should he be ruled out? He's got a shin issue. Should he get ruled out, we're going to have to raise a lot of these guys. Murray, Millsap, who played really well in the last game with Harris out. We'll raise Jokic, like the minutes, of course. We'll adjust those. Will Barton. But if Harris is in and we leave things as B, I'm sure we'll tweak some of these. Right, having Murray for 33.5 seems somewhat low in a close game. But Jamal Murray certainly standing out right now based off price. Paul Millsap as well, especially on FanDuel at 4.8. Seems like a good price. Millsap should have the responsibility of covering Sabonis. And Millsap is a good defender, but Sabonis is tough to guard. He really is. Should he struggle with that, we could see Plumlee get some time. We could see, they don't like to do it, but we've seen Plumlee and Jokic on the court together at times. But the problem with Millsap is the minutes are inconsistent. The range of minutes, anywhere from 20 to 28, maybe even 30, it's making him more of a tournament play night in, night out, unless there's an injury. And Gary Harris could be. I know it's not related to that point, but then people on the second unit have to get moved around. And so that ends up leading to player X maybe getting more minutes than they wanted to. You know what I'm saying? So Jamal Murray right now certainly standing out. Paul Millsap does stand out more so on FanDuel. Will Barton, obviously a big target. But again, low total game. Nothing here that excites me too much, especially if everybody's healthy. We'll go to the Indiana side. So we know Brogdon's out, as we mentioned. TJ McConnell looking like a strong value play. Projected for 25.25 minutes. He's very cheap on both sides, projecting for well over 6x. So he's, right now, if you were to run this now, it'd give you a lot of him. Same thing with Holiday, I think. Well, not as much, but certainly a viable value play. After that, Aaron Holiday's price is starting to catch up to him. On FanDuel at 5,100, there's still some meat on the bone, I think. Probably still some meat on the bone. Sabonis has benefited from usage. See, Sabonis and Turner are interesting because of how bad Denver's been against centers. So this is a situation where Brogdon out. Maybe I tweak Sabonis, give him up to 34.5, 35 or so, minute-wise. It's not going to elevate his projection to a point where it's going to start jamming him in, because especially on DraftKings, 8,400, his prices come up. But I think you're going to want some. And Turner, man, I feel at the beginning of the season, I've wasted so many teams. I finally stopped playing to do it, and it really hasn't hurt me. I will admit it's a good matchup. I will admit on DraftKings, his price is really low on a site where you get bonuses for double-doubles, etc. It is a really, really good price. Not so much on FanDuel at 5.8, because you only get one center, and there's going to be better ones on the board. But on DraftKings, it's interesting, and I'm surprised that they're projecting so low. But at the very least, we do have some value options here with like McConnell and maybe Holiday. I don't love Holiday, very scoring dependent. Justin Holiday, that is. But again, maybe Aaron Holiday, we look at analyze his minutes, see if there's some room to improve. Same thing with Jeremy Lamb. Just not a ton from this game I love. I just want to be mindful of the spots. And I know Denver's been really bad against centers. Sabonis will play a lot of 4, but he'll also get some time at the 5. And Turner is a 5. It's just, is his usage high enough? Is his ability high enough at this point? Because I really thought he was going to be some great impact player, and Sabonis has come and kind of shown him how it's done. But let's keep it rolling. We got the Toronto Raptors visiting Miami Heat, potential playoff preview. This total opened up at 215. It's down to 214. The Raptors opened up as 6-point road dogs. They are down to 5.5-point road dogs. Let's take a look at Toronto. We know Toronto's been riddled with injuries. And, I did notice Lowry's price. FanDuel, he was already kind of that price. And then once again, I think he's in a good spot. On DraftKings, they lowered his price to 8.2, which I think makes a little more sense. More importantly, they lowered Van Fleet's price to 7.9. So they're coming down to a point where we got to pay attention. Is this the matchup on a 9-game slate? I don't know. I do know that these kind of games have those playoff atmospheres. Sometimes they do bust, but a lot of times they end up being really competitive. They often, we see some overtime situations. So, you don't want to bank on that. But grabbing some exposure to guys, even if their prices aren't ideal, is something to consider. Kyle Lowry is certainly interesting. We know the minutes are going to be extremely high. You can see projected for 39.5 minutes, and Van Fleet projected for 39. That's because that's what they're playing every game. They're not leaving the court. I'm going to be more interested in Van Fleet when he's cheaper, but now they're at a point where there's only $300 in separation. And naturally, you can see it is probably because he projects for one full minute more, but Lowry does project slightly better on a raw points basis. And because the price difference is so close, it ends up also being a point per dollar difference. On FanDuel, it's interesting that Van Fleet is more expensive than Lowry. That is interesting, but he's been good. I'm not knocking him. Ibaka been a little disappointing since the first couple eruptions he had with his teammates out, but he's on the table. On DraftKings, he's 7,600. It is a 9-game slate, so again, I think the field's more competitive as far as like grabbing your exposures, and Ibaka's not projecting particularly great. On FanDuel, 7-1, different story, also a different position, power forward. I mean, he's power forward eligible on DraftKings too, but you could play him at center. On FanDuel, a little more interesting, price is more friendly. Him and Larry in general, both of them are much more in play, I think. The backcourt's confusing. RHJ started over OG last game. We'll want to see what they did. OG ended up having a pretty good game. He just didn't get those ceiling minutes. And RHJ started off like he was going to do the dirty and ended up finishing with like a 22, which wasn't great. I had like 40% of him that day, and didn't kill me, but it would have been nice. If he would have smashed, it could have made me. But it's the usual guys for the most part here. I'm not terribly interested in those ancillary players. If OG were to start and his minutes were to get lifted, maybe. Assuming he plays the 4. We've seen 4s, have their way with Miami a lot of the time this season. So, kind of interesting for tournaments. We like thin teams, but remember, when the price catches up, there's only so much you could do. Let's go to the Miami side. If I can find Miami. All right. Kendrick Nunn. His price has come down to $4,900 on DraftKings, $4,400 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, you're getting like a $900 discount, right, to play Nunn. That makes sense to me. That's worth considering Nunn. On FanDuel, they're both interesting. Dragic 5K. Coming off the bench, but he's playing good minutes. Usage looks good. Right? And Nunn 4-4. So both these guys highly in play, I think, especially on FanDuel. Bam Adebayo, I'm certainly interested in. On FanDuel, the price has gotten up, but that's just the way FanDuel is. Raw points may come into effect, but the usage for Bam has been awesome, man. He's been getting involved, getting assists, getting boards, like doing a little bit of everything. Certainly interested in him. Jimmy Butler, with Dragic back, he just hasn't been the same. I know Winslow is, I think, still out, but with Dragic back, he hasn't been the same. And now his price is up to 86 and 87 because he was popular, at least on DraftKings in the last contest. He didn't even do it. We got a 40 at 7-8. So I don't know. I mean, it is a playoff atmosphere. Maybe Butler gets up for something like this. The projection is not terrible for a player as expensive as he is. But again, the price just it's up, and he hasn't really gone for that ceiling type of performance since Dragic's been back. So I don't know. Tyler Hero, always worth him and Duncan Robinson are always worth a shot. If they get hot from the field, they could break a slate. I think it's a little bit less likely maybe on these larger slates because you could probably find someone else also that's a little more obvious. I don't know. But we'll see. But right now, the Miami players aren't projecting so bad, especially the guards. None in Dragic. It's kind of interesting. Normally, on DraftKings, I wouldn't play them together because Dragic's price, I would want one of them to do the dirty. But on FanDuel, in 150 lineups, if you want to play a few teams with them together, I don't hate it because they're so cheap that they can both hit tournament value. Let's go to the next game. We got the Utah Jazz visiting Chicago Bulls. We've got a 209.5 total that's come down from 210.5. We've got the Jazz opened up -3.5 on the road, still at -3.5. Jiggity Jazz. Jazz on the road. Bojan Bogdanovic projecting well on FanDuel. Not bad on DraftKings. He projects to be the best player on DraftKings. Donovan Mitchell's been a disappointment, I tell you what, man. He's got the upside when he gets hot. This could be one of those matchups because it's Chicago. They don't play good defense, like Zach LaVine specifically. But disappointed in, not the aggressiveness. He's been aggressive, but he's not that great of a shooter. He's just not. He does play in Utah, and a lot of people go in Utah and struggle. Could be the altitude, could be I don't know. Maybe the Simmons Stadium we don't know about, but I don't love it. But he's on the road against Chicago, though. It's especially if you are interested in the game stack, which I'm not terribly interested in with this low of a total. But with Conley out, we know the usage is going to be there. And the usage isn't a problem for Mitchell. It's just what he's doing with that usage. But he's going to take a lot of shots. Royce O'Neal for value is an option, especially on FanDuel at 3,900. Nut matchup for Gobert. There's not much we can do on a projection level. It's a nut matchup for him. It's just his price. And the usage on him isn't particularly great. He's just big. So putbacks, alley-oops, rebounds, maybe some blocks. That's in the picture. But on a projection basis, unless you force him in, you may not end up with a lot on a 9-game slate because we already got him at 35 point, 75 minutes, which is a lot. There's not a lot of room to raise, and you can see he's far from projecting as a good play, at least on a point-per-dollar basis. But it is a phenomenal matchup. This is going to be one player you got to make a decision on. People who build teams by hand are more likely, I think, to end up with Gobert than people who are using optimizers because the projection, unless some other site has a crazy boost factor on for the Bulls, and it's giving, which is possible, and it gives you more. But for us, I like Gobert, but if you want to play Gobert, you might have to do something to your optimizer or tweak his projection yourself to get him up because there's not much on the minute front that I could do from here. But we'll see. It could be a position scarcity thing at the end of the day. We got to look at how the other centers project, but we got some good centers. I know a couple. Let's go to you know what I wanted to look at for? I'm moving on here with Clarkson. Here you go, Clarkson. Oh, Clarkson's 5K. How about that? Projected for 24.5 minutes. On FanDuel, 4,600, much more friendly price. Tournament only option, I think, though. As always with Clarkson, it's all he ever is coming off the bench. Let's go to Chicago. Chris Dunn's price is coming down. He must have had a bad game, I guess, but before that, he was playing pretty well. We figure one dud every whatever. Zach LaVine's price has come down. On DraftKings, he's 7-7. That's kind of interesting. I don't love the matchup against Utah, but that is interesting. So it looks like the pricing is kind of tempting you to take shots on some of these guys. Even Satoransky on FanDuel because they flashed upside. Marketing on FanDuel is pretty cheap. But this isn't a game that I'm particularly too attracted to. I think Dunn and Levine, maybe make a case for Thad Young if you want, but I don't think that his floor is something we could rely on too heavily. But I think this Dunn and Levine mainly. All right, this next game is, to me, as of right now, until we get the news, the most interesting. The Golden State Warriors visiting the Minnesota Timberwolves. We have a 214 total. It's down from 217. Warriors opened up as 4-point dogs. They're now only 3-point dogs. Minnesota's been going to a ton of overtime games lately. You can't really project for that, but it is interesting. Two terrible teams, two teams that have been banged up for a while. We'll start with the Golden State side. We know Cauley Stein and D'Lo are still out. Kevon Looney is still out. Jordan Poole was sent to the G League. On the other side, where Cat, Wiggins, and Teague have been out. Wiggins and Cat have been out longer. Teague has a knee sprain. I'm pretty sure Teague's going to be out because he just sprained his knee, which is the same thing that Towns did, and Towns has already missed how many games. So I would be surprised if they played today in a back-to-back. I don't think Minnesota really expects to win much this year, and so I'd be a little surprised, especially if it's true that all these teams want Cat, which I'm sure it is, and a trade could be on the table. Just a rumor. But on the Golden State side, you figure Marquise Chris is good to see. The 28 minutes seem about on. On FanDuel, I don't understand why him and Burks and these guys are all still so cheap over there. But yeah, Burks and Chris, I'd be playing a ton of on FanDuel today at their prices. On DraftKings, I still like Chris. I still like Burks, but the price is a little more demanding. Damian Lee, I'm interested in. He didn't do as great last time, but he wasn't far off. I think his floor, when they're thin and he's going to get 35 minutes or so, his floor is around 30-ish. So when he's priced in the sixes, it's not as bad as it may seem. You figure he goes for 37, 38. There's another 7-8 points, which he could have had. It just didn't lead that way. He's not that far off. So somebody I would want to work in tournaments is Damian Lee as well. Draymond I'm cool with. I'm a little more interested in guys like Chris and Burks, but I can get some Draymond. I don't mind that. Paschal's, I don't know, he fell off a cliff. Hit some sort of wall. Kai Bowman's price, not as much of a lock, and they went to overtime. He didn't really play much at all. I don't think he played. In overtime, I think he technically came in for the last 2 seconds or something like that. But, yeah, the prices have caught up, so it's not the exact same situation, but I do think Chris Burks for sure. Chris and Burks are two guys that pop, especially on FanDuel. And again, like Lee, Green, these are guys I'm going to want to work in as well. I just got to factor in who I want more of in those situations. Glenn Robinson started off really well in the last game. He had a good game, but most of his damage was done in the first half. So just something to keep in mind as far as ceiling on FanDuel is still meat on the bone, I think. On DraftKings, probably, right? You only need like a 30-something, but I don't think it's as much of a lock. I do think that Burks, Chris, Lee, and Green are the main ones, and especially the Marquise Chris and Alec Burks. On the other side, Minnesota, we're waiting on a lot of news. Obviously, as of right now, we've got Wiggins and Cat and these guys. We got them in for now. Tentatively, the minutes are lowered. Everything's kind of lowered, which yesterday it put people in a weird spot. Not for us. We had Minnesota projected. As soon as we found out the guys were out, we raised the Minnesota projection, the minute projections, which ended up, I think, for the most part, working out. Not so much with Keelan Martin, or Gorgie Deng for that matter, but Shabazz Napier certainly did well. It was good to have, we were heavy on him, had a lot of exposure to him, and Covington didn't do phenomenally, but he did do well enough at his price in the fives, got to 33. On FanDuel, he gave you the 6X you were looking for, and the position wasn't as great, so I did see him in a lot of winning lineups, so I was happy with that. And we find ourselves in a similar situation. Now, this is all going to change once we get the news. If Wiggins, Cat, if they're all in, different perspective, I think. I think Cat's the main one I want if they're all in. I'm cool with Teague, but I don't know. It's been flaky. Had they been using him anyway? I wouldn't be interested in Covington because I don't think it'd be used enough. But Cat would be the main one I'd be interested in. I'd be okay with some Wiggins, especially on FanDuel at 7K. Now, if those guys are out, which I'm hoping, then we got to get ready to kind of load up on this game in general and just pray for overtime. Shabazz Napier would be somebody I would want a lot of. Jared Culver only barely got to 30, but I would take it again, especially on FanDuel, which is 4,300. So, Gorgie Dieng. I don't like the price, but it's a phenomenal matchup. So you'll start to see these guys project a lot better once we start getting some news. If we get news that they're in, the studs will project better. If we get news that they're out, obviously these other ancillary pieces will be a lot more appealing. So, and we could get some kind of combination. Maybe Cat comes back, but Wiggins is still out and Teague is out. Who knows? But that's another scenario. Say Cat gets ruled in, but Wiggins and Teague are out. I'm loading up on Cat. Say, Cat's out, but Wiggins is in, loading up on Wiggins. So that's kind of how we're going to treat it. But we need this news to break out on the live stream. We should, we'll see. Hopefully we get it. The problem is this game's a little bit later. This game is at 8 o'clock, so it's not terrible. If this was in Golden State, it'd be a 10 o'clock game. So it's not terrible, but we may not have it when we want it. It may come late. But this is a game to me that's pretty pivotal on the slate because of the way these two teams are and how thin they could both potentially be. The Warriors, we already know. We're waiting on the Minnesota side. Next up, we've got the Brooklyn Nets visiting the Dallas Mavericks. We have a 222 total, up from 220.5. Brooklyn opened up 8.5-point underdogs, down to 8 against the Mavericks. We'll start off with the Brooklyn side, of course. Jared Allen looking good on FanDuel. I love that he's power forward eligible. I can't stand that DraftKings got rid of that power forward eligibility over there. I get it, he's the center, but I do like the power forward eligibility on FanDuel as well as the 5.6 price tag. Spencer Dinwiddie balled out the last game. I think it's a fine spot for him. The price is where it is, so a little bit of a bigger slate. Last time it was a smaller slate. Easier decision. Bigger slate, not as easy to go heavy on a player like that when the range of outcomes is broad, but the usage is phenomenal for Dinwiddie. You're going to want to play Dinwiddie in these situations as long as he's not, too crazy. We know Karis LeVert's already been ruled out. We're expecting Kyrie to be out again. So I'm good with it. The usage should remain. DeAndre Jordan, I don't mind. Coming off the bench, it's hard to make that decision when you have a slate that's like 9 games because there's so many players to consider. I don't love too many people. I think it's really just Allen. Dinwiddie mainly. I think Dinwiddie, we can raise his minutes. 33.5 is low. So Dinwiddie will look a little bit better on paper. I do think Dinwiddie is worth taking a look at, especially if you're interested in this game because he's the main piece. I don't see a ton that I'm trying to go crazy over with the rest of these. It's really Dinwiddie, and we will raise his minutes. You'll see he'll project a little bit better for us later on. Going to Dallas, Jalen Brunson got the start in that last game. They threw us a curveball. Porzingis got ruled out late. Brunson only ended up playing 23 minutes. For those of you that are interested, so I see this projection. It's big, and the minutes are accurate, but I think a lot of his projection when he played the big minutes was when Luka was out. So we're gonna have to make some adjustments. He's 3,400, so I understand, but I'll probably have to make some adjustments at least on DraftKings because depending on how much it tries to give us, because I don't know if that's reliable. He went for 11. He shot 3 for 9, which is terrible. So maybe he plays a little bit more efficiently, but the usage, in the 23 minutes, he had 1 assist, 2 rebounds, shot 3 for 9 from the field. 18% usage rate while he was getting in the 20s, when Luka was out. So, I don't know. We'll have to come back and revisit that. Same thing with DeLon Wright. Just risky. Luka is the guy that's hogging up so much usage. Luka at 12K, I think is still fine. I don't care. On FanDuel, they were continue to disrespect him. On FanDuel, you're going to get a lot of Luka, I think. With our projections, you probably end up with a lot of Luka because I'm probably going to raise his minutes to like 35 or something, make him pop more on DraftKings anyway. Porzingis is pretty big news. If Porzingis is out, it'll make Luka that much stronger, right? Like if Porzingis is in, I still like Luka, but I think you have to consider Porzingis as well, and maybe Luka isn't as strong of a priority on DraftKings, but still, Luka has the highest ceiling on the slate. So he's a guy you don't want to ever not have any of the person with the highest ceiling on the slate. Because if that person does hit that ceiling, you don't want to be on an island without him. So Luka, definitely someone we're going to want to prioritize. Or that doesn't necessarily mean you have to put him 50% as of this moment. If Porzingis is out, he'll be close to that for me though against Brooklyn. It's a phenomenal matchup for him. Brooklyn plays no defense; they play fast. Love Luka. I'm cool with Porzingis, especially on DraftKings, but we need to know that he's in. He got scratched after lock last time. If he's out, Maxi Kleber balled last time on DraftKings. You're at a point. His price is kind of up. I don't know if you can guarantee the same results. It is a fine matchup, but on FanDuel at 4,200, I think you have the green light, regardless if he's out at 42. But Kleber, the people that played Kleber because they got lucky because Porzingis wasn't supposed to be. He got ruled out after lock when you couldn't make a change anymore, and that's that. But yeah, I'm not interested too much in the rest. It's Luka. If Porzingis isn't maybe him, the value will have to adjust. If Porzingis is out, I don't mind Brunson. But if Porzingis is in, Brunson got 23 minutes against OKC, only played 6 against the Lakers, 12 against Golden State, 14 against the Warriors. So we'll certainly have to adjust this minute projection and lower him. That's 100. We'll do that right after this show. Let's go to the next game. We've got, what do we got here? Got a few more games. Oklahoma City visiting the Spurs. 217.5 total, down from 218. Spurs opened up as -2 at home. Still -2. Starting off with good old OKC. Good old OKC. Gallinari. A lot of mediocre, right? We want guys out for this. We don't have enough guys out to make this all that attractive. It is the Spurs. We want to factor that in. Chris Paul is certainly interesting. Schroeder, Shea, we know those guys, the usuals. It is a good matchup for Adams. It's a minute usage thing, right? Adams is not guaranteed to get his 33, 34, 35 that we were used to at one point, or even 30 at that, not a guarantee. It is a phenomenal matchup. Spurs are terrible against bigs. They give up a ton of points in the paint, which also makes Danilo Gallinari kind of interesting. He likes to shoot from the perimeter, likes to take jump shots, but it is a really good spot for teams to get to the paint here with LMA down low. So I don't see a ton from this. Like the pricing, a lot of these guys are a little priced out. I think we do have room to tweak some of the minutes. Chris Paul, we can maybe raise a minute or half a minute to a minute or so. Maybe Gallo we can take a look at, but I'm not seeing a ton that's making me go nuts. OKC's not a team I love to target in general when everybody's healthy. I usually need somebody out, but I will say great matchup for the guards. Guards against San Antonio is a good thing. Centers against San Antonio. And they give up a ton of points in the paint. So it's really not a bad situation. It's just more of, are they all going to kind of eat and everybody's mediocre? Or do you see somebody here that's going to really pop? And I don't see anything from our projections that tell me that that's the situation unless somebody's ruled out, which I don't think. I was surprised Gallinari missed as much time as he did. Let's go to the Spurs side. DeJounte Murray continuing to project well on FanDuel. Minutes are up and down. The positive with Murray these days is if the game goes to overtime, you're not capped anymore. When he was on a minutes limit before, if they went to OT, you knew he wasn't getting the run, and that sucked. That's gone. The issue now, but it doesn't solidify his minutes. He's still inconsistent, dependent on what Pop feels, what he wants to do. Spurs also not projecting particularly well. OKC is not a team I love to target against in general. Murray looking like the standout so far, at least on FanDuel. Trey Lyles always interesting, but the minutes are just in flux. You don't really know. Rudy Gay's price has come down, but he's only going to play more minutes if he plays well and someone else is struggling. I think DeMar DeRozan's minutes we can take a look at and adjust. It'll probably raise him in the rankings on DraftKings, but he's having a disappointing year. There's no doubt about it. LMA has been looking good. He's been playing well. I'm not terribly worried about Steven Adams' defense, but the rebound aspect could be a little more difficult for him. Not a ton in this game I'm just too super excited about. Let's go to the next. We've got Memphis Grizzlies visiting the Sacramento Kings. Sounds good on paper. We've got a 225.5 point total, up 3 points from 222.5. Kings opened up -4 on the road, still -4. We'll talk about the Memphis side first. Joy. So Memphis is playing really fast this year, at least lately. They're playing really fast, and they're not playing very good defense. The Anthony Melton projected for 17 minutes, but he's been a pretty solid point per minute player, so it's not even looking terrible. John Moran I'm interested in. Let's take a look and see how many minutes he's been playing. Morant played 28 against Charlotte, 30 against Denver, 26 against OKC. So 30 is probably a safe projection in terms of minutes. I am interested more so than these projections reflect. Against Sacramento. Sacramento hasn't been playing as fast this year in general, but their defense still sucks, and we've still seen very high-scoring games when they're in pace-up matchups. So I do expect this to be a high-scoring game, and the Vegas total reflects that. I would like to be more interested in Ja Morant. I think I am more interested in Ja Morant. The minute cap does scare me. Dylan Brooks, certainly an option. Crowder. These are guys that I prefer when people are out, but they're certainly options. Brandon Clark's kind of interesting. The minutes, of course, suck, but it is interesting to think if he did see, say, 25 minutes, if he can go for that coveted 30 DraftKings point day, FanDuel point day. I think he could, but again, it's, you're taking a gamble because you don't know that he will. Jonas Valanciunas, I'm interested in. We could probably raise him to 28 minutes or so. Same with Jaren Jackson. I think we could raise those two a little bit. Sacramento was not good against centers. They're without Bagley once again. Not good against bigs in general. So the bigs are the main focus with Ja Morant, I think. I think those are the main players I'm looking on the Memphis side. The Sacramento side should be a little more interesting because they're the ones being paced up. De'Aaron Fox is back. Bielitsa projecting well. Never really know what you're going to get, but he is projecting well as a matchup with Jaren Jackson Jr., who's not a very good defender. De'Aaron Fox, the price is like probably where I think it's reasonable. He came back from injury, then had back spasms, so I'm concerned with how much they may be willing to play him. But either way, it's a phenomenal matchup. We love guards against Memphis. Scoring guards against Memphis. So I would love Hield more if Fox was out. With Fox in, I'm okay with Hield, but I still think I prefer Fox, even though he's more expensive. I think he just has more upside, more ceiling, ball in his hands more. Bogdanovich has only really been worth looking at when we've had an injury. Rayshawn Holmes, I don't hate. We could probably look at raising his minutes with the injuries that we have. Harry Giles has made an appearance. He's kind of coming back and popping a little bit. He just hasn't played a ton, but someone to keep an eye on. And that's probably why Rayshawn Holmes is only projected for 31 instead of the 33, 34 he's normally projected for. So something to keep an eye on. This is a game that on paper I thought I'd like more, but I guess because of the pricing and everything, I'm not as into right now. But Bielitsa, Fox, Hield, Holmes are guys I'd be interested in. I don't hate Barnes. Don't love him, but I don't hate him. FanDuel, he's 4-4 is pretty interesting. But we'll see. Maybe throughout the day, this stuff grow on me a little bit, or somebody gets ruled out. I think we only have one more game left. Yeah, Detroit Pistons visiting the Clippers. This should be interesting. So we've got a 223 total. Right? Yeah. 223 total, which is actually the second highest on the slate. And we've got a 12.5 point spread. Clippers at home, favored by 12.5. Detroit is without Blake Griffin. He was doubtful anyway, so we're assuming he's out. Markieff Morris, we know is out. Luke Kennard, we know is out. A lot of injuries. Whole lot. Still missing Reggie Jackson. You can see a lot of red at the bottom of this list. Christian Wood, yes, I'll take more. FanDuel's 4,100. That's criminal. I know he didn't perform the way everybody thought he would, but I think, like I said last night, the first half of that game just looked like variance. Just wasn't involved, wasn't relevant. That's not the kind of guy he is. He's going to get boards. He's going to get those things. And he scored most of his fantasy points in the second half. I think he had like a 7 or a 5 going into halftime. Finished with like a 21. So I do think, and you can see he projects because that's what his average is. He averages this many fantasy points per this many minutes. And then you factor in the matchup too. Clippers terrible against bigs. I know that Wood is more of a center type, and that could create matchup issues. Maybe he doesn't play with Drummond a ton because one of them has to guard, I don't know, PG or something. The matchup's not going to be pretty, but good thing about Christian Wood is in the event of a blowout, I think he would still get the run. So I like Christian Wood a lot today, once again, especially on FanDuel at 41. I mean, between him and Chris on FanDuel, you could punt both power forward positions. I think he's power forward on FanDuel. And kind of load up on Luka and whoever else you want. It's interesting. Frazier, I don't mind. Don't love him. Don't hate it. Bruce Brown's okay. The minute projection's looking good for Brown. That was an issue before, is that his minutes weren't like a lock. He's not a high point per minute player, so he needs the big minutes in order to produce. 33 minutes and 37 minutes his last two games. The usage just isn't great, but I can definitely take some because of how thin they are in general. If he's going to go back to getting 33 to 38 minutes, I can do that. Derrick Rose, I'm fine with on a tournament level. The usage we know is going to be good, especially with all these injuries. Of course, the issue is the cap on the minutes. They won't play him more than 28. So you can see from a projection standpoint, it's not bad. I'm sure I'll end up with some Rose, but it's hard to get super excited about it just because If the game does get you, this game should be a blowout. But if it's not, and you reap the benefits, you're worried about how much Rose will be limited. Andre Drummond, usage should be phenomenal without Blake. Rebounds, like awesome spot for centers. They have no answer to come close to stopping Drummond. Only player that can stop Drummond is himself. If he allows himself to get into foul trouble, if he is knocking over dudes on the offensive end, sometimes he gets matched up with a guy like Montrezl Harrell. He's so much bigger than him that when a little bump may look a lot bigger if Harrell sells it right. So you can see here, Detroit is popping. Like, they're thin. So we've got Wood, Frazier, Bruce Brown, all projecting for right around 6x. Then you got Drummond and Rose, who, considering their prices, are actually projecting really well on a raw points basis. So I do think I'll end up with a lot of Detroit today. I'm going to get other news, and maybe that lowers me on Detroit a little bit. We'll see. Make sure you check out the Core Plays article later when closer to lock, and watch the Wisestream to see where we end up. But as of right now, it makes sense. Detroit, we know the news, they're thin, and a lot of these guys are underpriced, and a lot of these guys have good matchups like Drummond and Christian Wood. I'm with it. On the other side, this is where it gets a little difficult. Did I just do Detroit again like a dumbass? I did. All right, on the Clippers side, Montrezl Harrell's price looks good. They're going to need some help with the bigs. It makes sense. Lou Williams, really good matchup for him. He's projecting well. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are actually not projecting terribly. I think I prefer George in this matchup, which is interesting because on DraftKings, Kawhi Leonard is actually projecting better than George, which I'll look into that, do some investigating. But I do think I prefer George. It's the other way on FanDuel. George projecting a lot better because he's a lot cheaper. But yeah, I think I like Paul George. I do like Lou Williams. I'll get some Montrezl because of how much of Detroit as of right now I'm looking to have. But as you can see, they're not even for a 12-point spread. We don't calculate for that anyway. But it's not bad. It's looking pretty good to me. They're projecting pretty well. This could be an interesting game. And if it does stay close, which you never know, any team can do it to anybody, right? Like everybody assumed Milwaukee was going to get destroyed as 17-point underdogs against Milwaukee, and they took them to the wire. So I am interested in this team. They're projecting well. Harrell is kind of interesting. You're just worried, against Drummond. Lou Williams is a very good matchup for him. It's just a matter of usage minutes. Kawhi is fine. The price is really high. And then Paul George, I think, is very interesting based off his price. Even Zubac as a value play. Don't hate it. Don't love it. Don't hate it. Yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for us today, Nation. Make sure you check out, get a day pass or something if you want to see the projections later on as we update them. This, of course, is 12:41 p.m. Eastern, so we're still waiting on a lot of news to come out. And I'm going to do some digging and make some adjustments. But these are the projections that I use personally, so if you want to rock with the Nation, you use some projections, get some WiseTake Nation flavor into your lineups. You can simply download our projections from WiseTake.com, upload them into the optimizer of your choice, and do the dirty to neighbors all across the land. With that said, guys, please like the video. Hopefully you enjoyed hanging out with me. Appreciate those of you who did. I have not looked at the chat just yet, but seeing some positive vibes here. Shout out to to Boyce over here. You guys do a great job. Appreciate it. Blue Boy, what's up? Agreed. Yeah, seeing a lot of good talk. I like it. It should be a fun slate, guys. Come hang out with us at the WiseTake Nation. We got a lot to offer if you're interested. If you have any questions, we do have a promo code I forgot to mention in the Core 4 video. Promo code 2020 get you 20% off any package. We're only doing that to the 10th. Promo code 2020 2020, and you'll get 20% off anything. Celebrate New Year. Appreciate y'all. Again, Wisestream later today, 5:45 p.m. Eastern, approximate start time. I say approximate because Paul, these motherfuckers late all the time. But we'll be doing it, leading you guys in the lock. Rest of the content will be up. It looks like Stevie Brown's NBA slate breakdown is already up. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.